This is only did a quickie of this. It's called a Recruiter Survival Guide. I didn't call it that yesterday, but I'm calling that today. But this will be a more extensive component here. I see JJ will be answering all your questions, so feel free to type in your questions into the chat area. I will see them there, but probably not always, so JJ will interrupt me both deftly as well as less diplomatically to say, Lou, stop talking, here's a good question to answer. So feel free to do that. Make sure you take the poll. Well, let me open the poll. We got 80% have taken it, of about 40 people. That's pretty good. So we got 71% of you not seeing enough good candidates. We're struggling with finding and hiring passive candidates. That's a good chunk. Over 50% managers aren't fully engaged. Actually, it's interesting. I actually do believe that recruiters are not having as many recs as they used to. I think somebody got that message a couple of years ago that if you have too many recs, all you're doing is pushing paper. So if you really want to recruit top people, you got to have time to do it. And candidates are less interested. We're actually starting to see that one on the increase. As candidates get more and more calls from recruiters, they're becoming less engaged. Already got something going, don't bug me anymore. So we're starting to see that. A year ago, that was only 10%. Now it's up to 30%. I suspect if the economy holds true and gets stronger, it'll probably be up to 50, 60%. Let me share results. I'm sorry, I should have shared results so you guys could see the results. Which is, I mean, that's obviously we're going to address all those issues here. So that's the plan for today. Some people are muted right now. Is that a true statement?
Yes, everyone is muted right now.
Okay, so if you're muted, if you want to raise your hand and ask a real question, JJ can unmute you. While there was a link in your email to the handout for today, also in your panel there, that's your GoToMeeting panel, you'll see one thing that says material. If you just push the right-facing arrow down, you'll see the link to the materials there as well. So you'll be able to get it real time right here. I heavily believe that this will be a collector's item. So if you print it out, well, it's not going to be a real collector's item, but here's the deal. We'll make it a collector's item. If I see you in person at LinkedIn's Talent Connect or Recruiting Trends Online in Vegas, or I'll be in Amsterdam or any of our boot camps, if you bring this handout, I will sign it. And this handout plus $5 will get you on the metro in that local city. So that's pretty cool. The humor does not get any better than that, but nonetheless, you can go for it. Let's start out. I can see that, well, of course, it's not, I couldn't hear anybody. That was the whole point of asking if I could hear you. I just finished this book called Peopleware. Interesting.
And Lou, you might want to close the poll so we can see your screen.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Good point. Thank you very much, JJ. I just finished this book called Peopleware. It was written by Tom DeMarco and Tim Lister. It was written largely in the 80s and 90s or about experiences, and they updated it. But what I thought was really interesting about the book is that they had a study done that went on for 10 or 15 years, where every year they had a contest called Coding Wars, C-O-D-I-N-G, Coding Wars, where they gave a specific project to a group of 100 or 200 programmers, and it was a length of time. It could have been a day or two. They really just worked very, very hard on solving this problem. And they looked at the results, and it was very clear that the top half was at least twice as good in terms of performance and quality than the bottom half. Interestingly, also, the top quartile was 3 to 4 times better than the bottom quartile. And a lot of the things that we do, I always say, is let's just target the top quartile. Those are a good group of people. Let's target them from a sourcing standpoint, recruiting standpoint, and an assessment standpoint. So everything that I try to do in respect to recruiting, whatever component of it is, it's let's narrow our search only to go after the top 25%. And if you have too much work to do, you can't talk to the other 75%. So somehow you have to differentiate the top 25% from everybody else right away, even before you call, before you look at resumes. So everything I do is based on that fundamental theme. And you'll see that come out throughout here. In fact, I'm going to give you the quick overview of performance-based hiring as a business process, and you'll see how it ties together with that concept. And then we'll kind of go into some details with respect to that. But some of you guys already know my background. When I became a recruiter, it was after running a small manufacturing company. I just loved recruiting more than making parts. So, but I could see that recruiting very, very quickly was a business process. I was not very good as a recruiter for the first 6 months. I got better the next 6 months, and I got really good after a couple of years where I realized that if I do a certain set of things all the time, anybody can be successful. And we trained about 10 people in my search firm to do exactly this, and they were all very, very successful. I don't think you'd find 10 recruiters in one firm that were you just wouldn't find 10 better. And they were all regular people. I mean, they were good people. They were just good people, and they did the same process, and they became exceptional people. So they all had a natural skills, but we gave them a process, and they became exceptional. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 to 15 years, is training recruiters and hiring managers in this process. If you want to hire the top 25%, there's some things you have to do every single time. Number one, the top 25%, even if they're are not looking for a lateral transfer. They're looking for a great career move. So everything you do, from taking the job, advertising, talking about it, it's always about a great career move. It's not about a lateral transfer listing skills, duties, and responsibilities. Take job descriptions off the table if you want to hire the top 25% consistently. Number two, the top 25% doesn't look for work the way the other 75% looks for work. In large measure, they're passive, but even if they're active, they still don't look for work the same way. So if you want to go after the top 25%, you have to mimic how they look for jobs, not how you want them to look for jobs. Number three, this is a combination of a lot of things, though. I don't know about you guys, but let me just ask you about your hiring managers. Do your hiring managers ever make a mistake in terms of assessing candidate competency, where you find a very good person, but they don't think the person's very good for some silly reason, or they ever misjudge a good candidate for dumb reasons or superficial reasons, or they're too narrow? Does that ever happen? Well, here's the other rule that I have. If you want to be a good recruiter and only hire the top 25%, you better be a better interviewer than your clients. They should look to you for coaching and advice and insight. That's the key. And I have to say, if I had to make a general key at all, while I was pretty good at finding people, I wasn't never really good at assessing people. So I was losing a lot of people because I didn't do the assessment right. So I spent 5 years, literally 5 years, 81 to 86, reading every single book on interviewing, listening, going in on site with my clients while they interviewed candidates. And after that, I emerged with 2 great questions, which is, if you read all my articles, they're in there. So I don't know what I'm going to get into today. But I recognized I had to be able to out-fact, F-A-C-T, my clients, not out-yell them. And if you know me, I'm from New York. I grew up in the Bronx. I worked in manufacturing. I tried to out-yell them. That did not work. But I could out-fact them with details. And in part of that, what I discovered is by digging deep in the person's accomplishments, the candidate respected my insight. And then when I said, hey, I think this is a great career move, wow, you're right. I never thought about this. So the interview not only allows you to assess candidates and defend your hiring managers, it also lets you demonstrate to the candidate that you know what you're talking about, and you can present yourself up as an expert, and you can advise the candidate that the job itself might actually be a good career move. And finally, you got to close the deal. And I don't know about you guys, but I never had enough money. For 30 years, I never had enough money in the budget. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of searches, never enough money. So I said, why fight the money? I'm going to fight to get a better job or a better career. So I also got candidates that think it's not about the money, it's about a career move. On the chance that the job I'm representing can really put you on a faster track and represents a very serious career move, would you at least like to talk about it under the possibility that the compensation might not be the biggest hit in the world? But offsetting that would be a significant career move. That's the way the mindset that I always go on. Not necessarily the words I always use, but in essence, that's the theme I always use. And the final piece is you can't do it alone, guys. Recruiting the top 25% requires a partnership with your hiring manager. Recruiting average people doesn't. But there's not one 25, and let you guys ask you, have you ever met a top person who you've placed, who might have had a counter offer or multiple offers, who didn't think the quality of the hiring manager was an important part of that decision to take your job? Maybe that's kind of a roundabout saying, is the hiring manager an important part of the candidate's ultimate decision to accept an offer or not? Yeah, so how can you, so if it is, how can you not, and I agree, I just haven't seen it. It's always important. So if you don't know the hiring manager, you're not dealing with a candidate with a full deck. So let's kind of go, so this is the general concept. Let me kind of go through some specifics of what I want to talk about. So I want to talk about what I call the recruiting funnel. And I have a metric which you'll see, it says if you're not placing, or excuse me, if a hiring manager needs to see more than 4 candidates who have said, hey, before the manager is ready to say, I'll hire one of these 4, there's something wrong with your process. So that's my big macro control mechanism. You see 4 candidates, you don't want to hire one, something's wrong. We're stopping, we're doing this from scratch over. And let me kind of go back to scratch and give you what I call the recruiting funnel, just so you see how we build up to that 4 candidates per hire. And I just want to give you a sense of, this is how I would suggest you go after the top 25%. Start off, you've got a pool of candidates. It could be a Boolean string you cut and you got 1,000 or 1,500 resumes. Could be the LinkedIn recruiter database. You got 175 million names, but you got a target pool to go after. From that target pool, you're going to do some digging, some pre-qualification, some searching, and you come down. You might even get a couple of referrals or leads, whatever it is. You're going to come down with a subset of all those people. Hopefully, it's the right subset. And there's things you can do to get the top 25% before you even, just by being good online. And then you have to call people. You have to actually qualify these people, get in touch with them. And there's a lot of effort between leads and prospects, a lot of effort. But a prospect, in my mind, is defined as someone who's perfectly qualified for the job and is perfectly interested in talking to the hiring manager, but that's all. They're not ready to, they're just, you think they're qualified, and they say, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to a hiring manager. This could be something serious. They're willing to spend 30 minutes with a hiring manager. They might even be willing to spend 20, 30 minutes with you, but in somewhere in there, they've decided they've raised their hand at least enough to the, I'm a prospect and serious. Then you have candidates. A candidate is a person who says, yes, I'm serious, I will apply, I'm going to take this very seriously, and will come on site for a full on-site interview. Fundamentally different than a prospect. Candidates have said, yep, I'm open. Then you got finalists. These are 1 or 2 people who you've decided I'm going to negotiate, and you got to hire. So that's the recruiting funnel. And it's perfectly logical. However, what many companies do, and I suspect a lot of what you guys might do, is you take shortcuts. You post an ad, and the ad describes some stuff. Generally, it appears to be a lateral transfer with some other company branding and some company boilerplate about how great a company you are to work for. And that is supposed to get people to jump from, you got my name, I'm going to apply. Well, let me tell you, if anybody's going to apply with no information other than what you have in a job description and will go jump to a candidate, I would just question their career aspirations. And it's not that they're not good people. It's that the only reason a top-notch person would do that is if they have an economic need to apply. Economic meaning my situation is not necessarily the way it should be. I'm going to say that shortcut eliminates a lot of people who you actually should consider who would look at the job if it were a career move. Just making that statement, I'll kind of come up with some issues here. So here's how I actually say, if you want to go after the 25%, you do have to go through every step in the funnel. If you try to take a shortcut, you will eliminate some very good people. I obviously have to prove that to you, but that's the recruiter survival guys. I think we take shortcuts. And one shortcut is not engaging your hiring managers earlier in the process. It's not you understanding, you the recruiter, getting on the phone and calling people and convincing this is a career move. Not taking money off the table to get them to move from a lead to the prospect. A lot of things you can do in those 3 steps, from leads to prospects to candidates, that you don't need to do. Now, on the other hand, if you get great candidates who apply, all A level or B+ level or the top 25%, hey, it's okay to take the shortcut. That's the only way you should take the shortcut, though. What I always do is conduct a supply-demand analysis first. Okay, here's my assignment. Now, CareerBuilder has a very interesting new portal called the Talent Portal. It's by CareerBuilder. Well, they'll give you a supply-demand. Here's a number of resumes that are public resumes and CareerBuilder resumes. So they combine the two. Here's the number of people looking for jobs both on CareerBuilder and in all these other public websites. So they actually do a quick supply-demand analysis. Hey, here's the labor pressure in a certain marketplace. Quickly tells you, hey, what should you do? I do a similar thing on LinkedIn. Recruiter is all I do is say, okay, I'm looking for this person, how many people meet this criteria, and how many jobs are open in this geographic area. You can get a pretty rough estimate. But you should do that for every search. That's a little pre-planning to know which channel you're going to take. Then I say, okay, let me see if my pool that I'm looking at is good enough. So I'll just take 50 resumes at random or profiles at random, look at them all, and say, oh, they're not very good. If I got 1 in 50 that's a top 25% person, why are you fishing in that pool, guys? It's just a low-yield kind of percentage. So you got to do some kind of assessment of the quality of the pool. And this only takes 15 minutes. I mean, we're not talking rocket science here. Yeah, I think Wanted Analytics does a very similar kind of thing, Doug. Yeah, so they definitely do something similar. Now, another thing you might want to look at is what percent of your candidates, you post an ad, you see 100 or 200, 300 resumes, how many of those ultimately become candidates? I mean, what percent would you say? So you get X number of people apply, what percent of X ultimately do you screen, talk with, qualify, and they actually become one of the finalists? Or serious, if you're only going to show 4 great people, they become one of the 4 great. What percent off your ads generally get to of all the numbers, all the people that apply? I'm sure you have that through your ATS, number of applications versus number of final candidates. Well, just type into the chat what you guys would see. 10%, wow, that's pretty good. I mean, you get 10%, wow, if you get 10%, meaning, let me just say this, guys, so you only have to get 30 resumes and 3 of them are finalists. That's pretty amazing. I mean, most companies, when I actually look at the numbers, it's less. They get hundreds and hundreds of responses and maybe 1%. So if you're getting, I mean, let's say this, then if you're getting A-level people, we're running a posting, you don't need to do any direct sourcing. I would check that statistic out, guys. I would just check it out, because that's generally not what Career Builder shows for all their people. They actually show less than 1% of people who actually apply and actually become A-level candidate. A-level, not just people to fill a position, A-level candidates. So I'm not talking about filling a position. I'm talking about an A-level candidate. But nonetheless, if you're getting those numbers, you don't need to do any direct sourcing. You do not need to go after passive candidates. You're wasting your time. If you get A-level people, then go for it, and I totally support that. However, if the demand for talent is greater than the supply, if the demand, meaning everybody's going after these people, and you're not getting a good one, well, now you got to change then you have to take this path. You have to convert leads to prospects. Okay, I got a bunch of names, I got to call these people up. It's much more labor intensive, and you don't need to do it unless you're going after the top 25%. If you're already getting good people, then don't worry about it. But you have that lead to prospects. You have how long does it take to get a pool of prospects in front of your hiring manager? How many prospects get converted to candidates, and how many candidates do you need to hire? So here's my general rule. If you get leads correctly, particularly, and we'll go through a few techniques today, 80% of your leads you should be able to convert to prospects, meaning you're not going to talk to anybody who's not pre-qualified, and it's a lot of recruiting to get that 80%. If you do it properly and understand how to use the tools, you should be able to have 4 prospects ready within 72 hours after you take the assignment. So if you took the assignment Tuesday night, Friday morning, or sometime Friday, you should be able to present 4 prospects to your hiring manager to talk with. Again, a prospect is someone who is perfectly qualified, interested in what you have to offer, but not ready to officially apply or come on site, but wants to chat with a hiring manager, see if it's really a career move. And the hiring manager and the recruiter together should get at least 60% of those prospects to say, yep, I'm willing to do it. I recognize the relocation. I recognize the comp, but I'm willing to do it. And the hiring manager agreed, hey, I own this person. Yes, I want to bring him on site. So which really means you have to probably get 2 prospect pools together to get 4 finalists. And then to get 4 candidates, these are 4 fully qualified, one of them will take your offer. So that's the deal. One of them will take the offer. And I'm going to contend if you do that properly, you will maximize quality of hire. You will minimize the time to fill, because let's be frank. If the hiring manager, you take assignment on Tuesday night, you have candidates in front of them Friday morning, you get the final group of candidates by the middle of next week. So the hiring manager is seeing candidates in 10 days, depending how long it takes to go through it. You'd say, hey, 2 weeks later, you should be making hires. That will maximize quality, because I'll show you how to, because the only people you're going to bring from leads to referrals are the A-level people. You minimize time, because you can't do it much faster than that unless they're already ready and at the door, and you minimize your cost, because primary driver for cost is time to fill. So that's where we're going here. But I want to kind of put one other overlay on this whole assignment. The overlay is going the path of an applicant to candidate, taking a shortcut, is a different strategy than going straight down the middle of the funnel. Taking a shortcut, the left, this way, is they call a surplus strategy. Surplus meaning the demand for talent is far less, or excuse me, the supply of talent is far greater than the demand. Plenty of great people who are looking for jobs and that will apply right away, and that's a good strategy if you're truly getting the right people. I would just check that. I haven't seen many people who have that for high demand positions. It's okay. However, if you're going down the middle, that's a different strategy. That's called a scarcity strategy. And in a scarcity model, you have to do different things. Unfortunately, one of the things you have to do is you have to have different tactics. You can't drive candidates in a scarcity model to the apply button. You got to have a sequences of conversations. Your internal processes also have to be in line with that from a compensation standpoint, from how you write your ads, how you post your ads, where you post your ads. It's a different process. And the people involved in a scarcity model, the hiring manager doesn't need to be nearly as engaged. In a surplus, which is to the left, but in a scarcity model down the middle, the hiring manager has to be engaged at the beginning. The candidate clearly is a key person here, and you the recruiter. So typically you have these four things that are out of alignment: strategy, tactics, process, and people. And under normal circumstances, those are anti-gravity. It's like the reverse poles of a magnet. They go apart. There's not any alignment. Managers do their own things. Recruiters do their own things. Candidates do their own things. I mean, it's all squishy-squashy. So you need a set of metrics and controls to hold all of this stuff together. And that's part of what the metrics are. And that's part of a recruiter. A recruiter can do this one search at a time, but if you don't have the right metrics and process control, there's a tendency for this thing to go out of control. The metrics keep it into control. There's a natural tendency is people are going to do their own thing, managers are going to do their own thing, recruiters are going to do their own thing, use their own tools, and it gets out of control. So your job in terms of setting up a strategy is to say, and tactics and process, hey, we got to hold this whole thing together. And that's what so in a nutshell, what we do is we go down the middle of this funnel and we develop the strategies, tactics, process, and people to hold this whole thing together. And I tell people, if you truly can get candidates just by posting a boring job and they're A-level candidates, you can fill jobs quickly, do it. There's no other cheaper way to do it. However, most hiring managers say they're not, from their recruiters say, they're not seeing enough good people. So you've got to kind of say, okay, is what I'm really doing is getting me the best people possible. So let me kind of take a different sidestep, and feel free, folks, to ask questions. I don't see any questions coming up yet, so feel free to ask questions. I want to kind of take a totally different perspective, and it really gets into the details of what I talked about, the tactics and processes. So let's get into tactics and processes, and I want to talk about hiring the top 25%. And you'll start seeing clearer which path you should take, the path of surplus or the path of strategy straight down the funnel. There's 4 buckets that you can put that people make decisions on, buckets of information. I call before day one bucket are the candidate's profile, skills, experience, academics, background, all the industry background, all the stuff they put on their profile. It's also what most companies put in a job description. I call it before day one. This is the stuff, okay, you must have this, it, mimics what's on a person's profile, and you're looking for people to filter them out based on what they have. And you say, this is what we need for the job. You need all this stuff. Correct or not, that's what we use. Then you have what I call day one criteria. This is what a person would get on the day he or she starts working. They get a title, they get a company name, they get a location, they get a salary, and they get a list of responsibilities. Interestingly, that's the stuff that candidates ask about when you first call them on the phone, passive or active. The bulk of they tell me about where's it located, what's the job, what's the comp. They always ask day one criteria. But what's interesting is when good people, the top 25% make a decision, it has nothing to do with before day one. They don't even think about before day one, and yet that's what everybody describes in their job descriptions. They certainly think a little bit about day one on the list, but it's not number one on the list. What number 1, 2, and 3 on the list is what's the work, what's the impact of that work, what's the learning involved in that work, and who's the team involved, and specifically the hiring manager. And what's my total rewards, which is probably 4th or 5th. That's usually, year 1 is usually the criteria a top 25% person will decide to accept your offer or evaluate competing offers against. Beyond year 1 is also a critical component of how the top 25% makes a decision. I already have a job. Why should I take another job that doesn't offer a better year 1 job and an opportunity to become better if I'm successful? So year 1, beyond year 1 is the future. Year 1 is what they're going to be doing the first year, the impact that they can make on themselves and the company, learning opportunities. Day 1 is what they get the moment they drive into the day when they start. And before year 1 is all the stuff they had to do to get in the filter. And I'm going to contend people make profound decisions in each one of these buckets. And if they're not the right decisions, you're losing good candidates. We tend to advertise and phone screen on before day 1 and day 1 criteria. Candidates tend to ask about day 1, and you, the recruiter, tend to screen on day 1. Yet, the criteria that the best people use has nothing to do with either of those, other than the compensation's on the list, but it's usually 4th or 5th. Candidates are looking at that, hey, what's this career opportunity? What's the growth opportunity if I get there? But if your compensation isn't right or the location isn't right, they'll never get to that point. And the truth is, you never even talk to those people if they didn't have the skills right. So I always ask people, let me ask you this. Now, I want to just ask you a simple question. How do people get promoted at your company? Just think about the people who get promoted internally at your company. What's the primary criteria they use to get promoted? I'll leave that totally open-ended. You can put a word in you want. At your company, people get promoted primarily because of A and B. What's A and B if you finish that sentence down? Okay, you can say it to everybody. I know Susan said performance. Performance, top performance. Yeah, okay, it's always performance. It's always the work they do, right? It's always year 1. And yet, and when you think about it, most of the people who get promoted, now the definition of a promotion is a bigger job. It's not the level of skills. They got promoted because they thought you guys thought they could handle a bigger job. They probably, if you hired that same person from the outside, that person wouldn't even have been seen because we changed the criteria from the outside. It's not about performance. It's about skills and what they have and what they bring to the table. So someone who's a top performer, let's be real frank, guys, in the first 10 years of someone's career, maybe 15 years, the top performers have less experience because they got promoted. They got promoted in a year to a higher level, or 2 years, where it usually takes the average person 3 or 4 years. So the top 25% always gets promoted faster. That's the definition of the top 25%. And we exclude those people when you use a filter, a before day 1 filter, to advertise or to screen people. And that's why, when I go back to the funnel, very few people would say we're getting top 25% of fully employed people responding to our ads. And if you get 5% of that, you're getting, so every 20 people you get, one of them is a great candidate. You get 100 resumes, you got 5 candidates, you're done. How easy is it to get 100 candidates to respond to an ad? And if 5% of them are good, you're done. You can get that done in a day or half a day. That's why I just question the quality of the people, because generally speaking, good people want to see year 1 and beyond year 1 as a criteria. Now, let me kind of just take this a little bit further to put some question marks into the whole process you guys might have at your company. I call it moment 1. Moment 1 is when you first meet the person in person. The huge impact of first impressions. And when we like somebody, we start asking them easier questions. Oh, you're a good person, I like you. And when you don't like somebody, because they might be a little bit nervous, or they don't look different, or they might be older than you want, or they might be physically challenged, or different race, or different religion, you don't like them. And to me, and a lot of people don't recognize the profound impact of moment 1. And they exclude a bunch of other good people because they don't look like us, or they don't seem to be. They don't recognize this person might be might be a little bit older and like bigger and not the neatest guy in the world, but this person is the best salesman at this other company. We don't recognize that. Well, the person's too old, wouldn't fit in our culture. The person's too quiet. You don't know that. You just made this judgment about first impressions. So I find not only a huge number of mistakes on bad advertising, I see a heck of a lot of good people get blown away because they just don't look like us, and they just wouldn't fit. And we have an interview, and all our managers interview differently. They all vote yes or no. We've got this big question mark. I mean, think about the processes we've got. We emphasize before day one and day one. We emphasize moment one. We interview all oddly and weirdly, and we wonder why we're not hiring enough good people. I'm going to contend is because we haven't really understood the process. Let's focus on year one and beyond year one. We control moment one, and we have a logical interviewing methodology that actually determines, hey, is this top person a top performer and can do our work? I don't want to compromise any of that. I just want to take out all the noise and the errors involved in the system. That's, in a nutshell, a lot of the stuff we do. It's because your tactics, processes, procedures, and people are all out of alignment. Now, hopefully, what I just defined there generated some questions. JJ, I don't see any questions come up.
No questions.
I can't believe that.
I know.
You guys can't buy into this. I threw some stuff in here that was absolutely wrong. I want to see if I can catch you guys. So think about, what does this mean to you? And let me say, in my mind, what it means to me is you've got to emphasize year one and beyond in your postings. You got to control moment one so you don't get biased by whether you like or dislike the person. You only get biased, is this a good performer or not a good performer? That's okay. Quite frankly, if the person is a top good performer, I don't care what race, religion they are, I don't care what color they look like, I don't care if they're physically challenged or not, I don't care anything about it. If they're a top performer, they deserve an opportunity to do this job. And conversely, I don't care if they're what race, religion they are, how old they are, how physically. If they can't do this work, they don't deserve the job. Performance matters. Skills and experience are only obfuscate or confuse the issue. That's my position. I'm sticking to it. Okay, here's point one. Hiring top talent needs to emphasize the long term over the short term. Year one and beyond, not skills or day one. Number two, traditional job descriptions are useless. They prevent you from hiring the best people. Point three, past performance is the single best predictor of future performance, not past behavior. Past behavior is not the same as everybody can show initiative. Everybody's got examples of where they've worked with other people. Everybody has motivation to do some kind of work. But it's not performance. Performance is, have this person done comparable work in if we're going to hire them or not. Point four, if you don't control the process, people will do their own thing. I guess that's the best way. If you don't control sourcing, the assessment, the closing, the processes and procedures, things will go awry. And unfortunately, ATSs preclude you from doing this. They've been designed from a compliance process standpoint that has nothing to do, they've been designed to manage the hiring of average people, not the top 25%. So your underlying infrastructure, which is your ATS, almost precludes you from doing this. There are companies that are changing that mindset, and you'll start seeing them next year. Let me talk about some key metrics, and I'd like you to let's make this quite personal for now. The biggest metric I want is for you. The biggest metric is how much better, if I just to say, okay, now it's now August 23rd, 2012. If you really were to devote and invest in yourself, a year from now, how much better would you like to be as a recruiter? 100% says, I'm going to get twice as many placements doing exactly what I'm doing today, would be fine. That'd be 100%. I'd like to have 80% of my people being A-level candidates a year from now instead of 50%. That would also be 100%. But 50% is, hey, I'm going to be significantly better, I'm more productive. So if you just had to pick a number for yourself, how much better would you like to be? Just put that in the chat. I'd like to be X% better a year from now in terms of my ability. Okay, Susan's got 100. Christy's got 100. I actually, in all our training, I start off with this question. So I just start off with this question. And it's very personal, so you got to just make your own call. So first off, let me say, I think you can be 100%. Yeah, Mike Lacey, I've seen him. Mike, you're already 150% better from last year. You only do this 2 years in a row. So here's what I basically say. If you want to be 100% better, you can't do the same things you're doing today. You can be 20 or 30% better by improving what you're doing today, taking out some of the slop. But to be 100% better, you almost have to throw out everything you're doing today and rethink the whole problem. Rethink the problem. My company, we train recruiters to rethink the problem, but we know that half the problem is hiring managers, so you got to rethink them too. So part of our training is we rethink. We go into companies, we actually work with recruiters and hiring managers and the executive team. So you got to have a lot of people rethinking it. But the truth is, the tools are out there. And I'll quickly say, with LinkedIn Recruiter, it's just a game changer. I don't think people know how to use it. They look at it, how am I going to get 10 to 20% better? I can be 100, 200, 300% better. The one metric that I really put in place here, and I do this with all my clients, is if I do a search, guys, if you need to see more than 4 people from me for an assignment, we're going to stop. There's some rules behind it, but if you're not ready to hire, and maybe I'll give you the first one as I can make a mistake, but the next 3 better be right on. Because I know that if I'm not right on right away, if all 4, and I think all 4 of them should be good. These aren't, there's 3 bad ones and 1 good one. No. Maybe 1 bad one and 3 all hireable people. So the mix of that is, because I know that if I'm not there, either we're not on the same page or something's wrong here, and we got to rethink it. Because again, it's that circles are out of control. So 4 brings it. If you get the 4, and 3 of them are good, maybe 1 is just a winged it. I'm okay with that. So that's just my macro metric. I start by this. So I don't take assignments, and I'll give you a little bit of this today. I will not take an assignment. I urge you, if you want to be 100% better, don't take assignments. Do not use job descriptions. I'll tell you, that's the first thing. You've got to throw away job descriptions. Don't even think about using them. They're a waste of time. You'll never get 100% better. Maybe get 20% better. The way I do it, and I'm going to show you that in a moment here, is I just say, let's define B plus performance. You want to hire a top 25% person. What would it take to be in the top 25% of all the people you've hired in your company? So when I talk about the A level, the top 25%, it's not about the universe of 100 people. It's people you would normally hire. The top 25% in your company are people who get promoted, who get the bigger projects, who get the bigger raises. So I want to define the top 25% in your current company so we can raise the talent bar, not the top 25% of the universe within your company. So it's very focused on the top 25%. Here's my other rule. 72 hours, you'll have 4 or 5 prospects. You, the hiring manager, have to talk to every one of these people I recommend for 30 minutes on the phone. Have to. That's the rule I have. And the prospect, again, is not ready to hire. You, the hiring manager, are going to convince this person this is a career move. Oh, what do you mean I got to do that? Yeah, that's part of the deal. Because I know 3 weeks from now, they're going to, based on how well you do that, they'll decide to accept this job or not. And if you're not willing to do it, I can't work with you. That's a rule I have. I also have a scorecard variance, which is another metric. We have a talent scorecard. My clients have to use that talent scorecard when I do a search. We have clients around the world now using that same scorecard, but and there's 8 factors on it. Well, there's probably more than that, but there's 8 factors that you use to make the judgment. And then each of those factors are on a 1 to 5 scale. If the interviewing team is more than plus or minus half a point on that 5-point scale, no decision is made. Because it means somebody screwed up the interview. I mean, if you really did the process right, and somebody thinks a person's a 2 and somebody thinks a 4, I got to tell you, nobody knows what they're doing. I call it a micro control. 4 interviews is the macro control. The scorecard variance is the micro control. That's called real-time process control. Make sure your process is in control. And you do all those things, your cost per hire will drop to as low as it possibly could. But your quality of hire will be maximized. So this is where we're going here, and I'll kind of give you some insight on how to do this. First off, quick infomercial. Just got to do that. And I know many of you know, because the only way I found you guys is you've probably been to some of our training. We have a couple programs, 3 probably in particular. Recruiter Boot Camp is our basic training for recruiters. We go into everything we talk about on performance-based hiring. It's our entry-level class, but literally it shows you how to be in the top 25% of all recruiters. We have an online version, starts every Friday of every month, 4 parts online. We have a live tour. We're in Toronto on September 25th, New York on the 27th, Washington, D.C. on the 30th, San Jose on the 5th, and I'll be in Amsterdam in Europe on November 7th if anybody wants to go. They're welcome to go. if you go to any of these, either online or the live program, you can attend any other one at no cost. So we charge one fee, but you can go for a year. You can go to any live or online program for boot camp. We also have a training program for hiring managers because we know, and we actually train more hiring managers than we train recruiters, just so you guys know it. Every 10 recruiters is probably 100 or 200 hiring managers, so we train hiring managers to dovetail with the process. And we also have a new class called the LinkedIn Recruiter Master Class. You have to have a licensed LinkedIn Recruiter to attend that, and it's also, that one right now is only online. Although, no, we go into companies. So the public version's online. We go into companies and train them in a case study environment, a laboratory environment to do it. Everybody who comes to either any of these programs gets a learning center. They have access to this learning center 24/7. It pushes them out to the classes, live or online. Bunch of hiring tools, how to convert jobs to careers, how to prep a candidate. So a lot of good tools. I mean, and we offer you certification. If you get certified through boot camp, you can now attend LinkedIn Masterclass at no additional fee. So pretty cool program. One fee, you pass boot camp, you get to the LinkedIn Masterclass free, and the fees aren't high. You know, it's manageable and it's certainly fair, not super low, but certainly reasonable. But it's a pretty cool program. The focus is on maximizing quality of hire and controlling interviews for hire, but the real focus is in getting you over 100% better. And I hire a coach. I have a coach that works with each one of you personally and gets you to get certified. And if you get certified, you will be 100% better. That's the rules. And it's not that hard. I mean, when you think about it, there's so much slop in the system, it's not hard to be 100% better. But you just got to rethink how you're doing everything. So let's kind of get into some details of this. Here's my 2020-60 sourcing plan. So let's do a little planning here before we get into the search assignment itself. And I'm going to probably go another 20 minutes just so you guys know that. I think this is important, and I'll give you one tip on how to convert a job into a career, and then we'll call it a day here. This is a survey we conducted. This pie chart represents a survey, I should say, of what work we did with LinkedIn over the last 2 years. And I've been actually doing it 10 years, not as intensive as I did with LinkedIn. But it basically said we took a survey out to LinkedIn members, got 7,000 people both times to complete the survey. We narrowed it down to about 4,500 people, and the condition was they had to be fully employed and they had to be working at a company of at least 500 people. So that was the basic criteria. We asked them a question in the survey: how satisfied are you in your job? If you're looking for a job, how are you looking for it? And if you would accept the job, even if you were looking or not, what would you want in a new job? So that was the criteria. We really understand their job hunting status and how satisfied they are in a job. 28% of the whole population, and this would probably be such a big sample, it's probably at plus or minus 2% in terms of representing the whole population. 28% were super passive, very delighted with their job, not looking at all, but 75% said, but I would talk to a recruiter for networking purposes, and if it was a job that was remarkable, I'd at least talk about it. I mean, it got to the point of course, I'd keep my mind open, but not looking right now and don't want to change. But at least worth talking to and networking with. Another 40% said they were explorers because, hey, if a recruiter called, they weren't looking at all, didn't have an updated profile or resume, but if they were looking at all. But if a recruiter called them and said, hey, would you be open to talk about a career move, they definitely said they would talk about it, but only if it was a career move. So super passive, not looking at all, but would take a super career move that doubled their income, as that kind of thing. Explorers, very serious about a serious that would accelerate their career growth. 40%. Well, that's 68% of the total fully employed market. 15% were tiptoers, saying they started looking but didn't tell anybody publicly other than a few close associates they worked with in the past, 2 or 3 very close associates who might have mentored them. So that's 83% that aren't going to find your posting. They're just not going to find it. Now then it means you 17% might find your posting. So these are the candidates you're going to post a job anywhere. Now this is on LinkedIn, so I don't know if it's representative of the whole world, but it's certainly of the if you're going after fully employed professional people, it is representative of the whole world. 5% start their search by going to Google to look for a job, looking for a software development job, Ruby, Irvine, California, whatever it is. They put it in search, or they go to an aggregator like Simply Hired or Indeed. And they might go to a a big brand company. But generally speaking, company, once people get in the top 25%, aren't as enticed by the employer brand as everyone else is. I mean, I know everyone thinks, oh, the employer brand is great. The reality of it is, if you're 26 or 28 and you're a top player, you want accelerated growth more than the employer brand. But if you can get accelerated growth and the employer brand, you're in good shape. But not every place has that. 4% were networking, and this is mean they told the world and they were networking with people they knew. At least they knew. They weren't networking people they didn't know, but certainly people they knew. Then you got 8% were actually going directly to the career site and a little bit more hungry. Well, that's, when you think about that pool, you should have a sourcing plan that maps to it. So here's I call it my 20-20-60 sourcing plan. 20% should get to this group right here. Everybody who's probably going to find it, and hopefully if you search engine optimize it, they'd find it through Google. But if you just have a boring job like everyone else's job, you're probably not going to attract them. So it's got to be both. People got to find your ad, and it's got to be a compelling story. And that will get you the active people. And again, when I did the first thing with the funnel, if you're getting plenty of good people just by posting, fine. But recognize you're going after that narrow segment of the market. You might not be going after great people. But if they're already A-level people, fine, do it. Why would you do anything different? There's another group I would call it targeted emails. I have, in our training, we call it clever Boolean. It's so simple. You don't need, let me just tell you this, guys. You do not need Boolean searching. It is a waste of time. If you know and or not, parentheses and quotes, that's all you need to know, but you need to put clever terms in it. Clever terms are what would differentiate using and or not parentheses and quotes that would put the person in the top 25%. It's simple. I've written a couple blog posts on it, so look them up. Clever Boolean, that's all you need to know. Don't waste your time. I'm really serious. You're just dialing for dollars. But you do need some tool to automate it and send out these emails to the top 20%. And that will get you this group and possibly pick up some tiptoes who you get. Because they haven't posted their resume. They might have an old resume, though, so you're still going after, maybe you're broadening the pool a little bit. And maybe you'll get some explorers who had their resume up. So you're starting to at least big up a pool. But 60%, if you want to go after this 28 and 40% and most of the tiptoers, you got to really expect to get online and start calling people on the phone. LinkedIn Recruiter has a button called, it's not called the clone button, it's called the similar profiles button. So once you find a good person, push the clone button, and you got 99 other people just like that person. A VTC is a virtual talent community. It's your connections. That is the future of recruiting, guys. Your connections. And if you work for a big company, it's your employees' connections. Even if you don't know those employees, you can do a search on coworkers and search on, with LinkedIn Recruiter, you can search on their connections. Perpeting is proactive employee referral programming. Proactive employee referral program. It's the idea of getting your employees to proactively connect with their best people. And cherry picking is the concept of, hey, I'm going to talk to, let's assume I knew Debbie Dameron. Debbie and I work together at the same company. I don't know her. I just call her up, and she's connected to 300 people. I just search on her connections. LinkedIn Recruiting allows you to search on her connections. So rather than me calling up someone cold, I can say, hey, Debbie, what about this person, this person, this person? So I can pre-qualify the person before I ever call them. And the person will call you back if they're pre-qualified. I mean, so you just think about all those things that go on, and LinkedIn Recruiter allows you to do that. So that's actually the reason you can get in 72 hours. You can't do 72 hours without LinkedIn Recruiter. Without it, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to really do it unless you already have a huge network on your own, which you still can't do. It's still too manual. But so to me, LinkedIn Recruiter is the best investment in the world. And I don't think many recruiters use it for networking. They use it for mostly posting and targeted emails. In my mind, networking is the best value. Okay, I want to do one other thing here, but let me stop right there. I'm going to do one thing real quickly, talk how to convert a job into a career, and then I'll leave it open-ended. So any thoughts or comments, guys? If you have any questions right now, kind of just throw it at me, and we'll kind of add them there. Okay, last point, which will take 5 minutes, and then I'll open it up to any Q&A, or we'll close it down. When I take an assignment, and the big thing that I think, and I know Mike has seen this 100 times, and many of you have, but it's still true today. I did it yesterday. I got a call from a small company. He's an owner of a company. He's not big, made automotive parts. It was a connection I had when I did a lot of search work. Somebody his lawyer remembered that I did search for one of his other companies. The guy president of the company calls me up. He said, I'm looking for someone with 15 years experience in magnesium alloy and this. I want him to run the company. I said, what does he have to do? What do you mean, what does he have to do? I said, well, I need 50. I said, no, what does success look like? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Most people, when they start looking, think about a job description. 10 to 15 years, skills this, and that. I don't do that. I mean, let's be real frank, guys. You can have all those skills and not be a top performer. We all met people we promote internally who are top performers. So if you focus on the job description, you're not guaranteed to get a person who's a top performer, and you exclude people who could be top performers who have a slightly different mix of skills. And you also exclude people who do have all the skills who aren't looking for a lateral transfer. So why would you post the job description to eliminate the best people? All you're possibly getting, let's be real frank, guys, if you're posting a job description, here's the conditions you're getting. Someone who has an economic need to apply, to find it, someone who is willing to take a lateral transfer for at least a year, and who is a high achiever. How many people meet that condition? Economic high achiever who has an economic need and willing to take a lateral transfer. And you guys really, to me, just that logic alone says, why would I ever use a job description? Why would I even think of using a job description? So here's what I do. I talked to this president yesterday. I said, or the owner of the company, I said, what does a person need to do? And he came up with stuff. I said, no, I'm not going to take the search. So if somebody wants to work in Southern California on a search, he doesn't know it yet. I just couldn't do it. But somebody wants to work in Southern California, find a president for a small manufacturing company. It's still a $250K job, and they'll still pay a fee, but give me a call if you want to do that. But neither here nor there. My first step would be define success. Success determines the skills they need. The skills are secondary. Skills don't drive success. Success determines the skills you need. So you got the order from a logic standpoint backwards. Hey, I guarantee if someone can do that work, they got the exact right level of skills. And if they got 80% of the skills and have demonstrated that with 80% of other jobs they can do 100% because they're quick learners and high potential, you got the right candidate. I got to tell you guys, in a nutshell, that's what we do. Let's define success. Let's find people who have 80% of that success and offer them a career move. And in that 80%, we found these people had been able to achieve 100% of the work with only 80% of the skills, and they've done it 2 or 3 times in the past. Now, Debbie's asked a very profound question. How do we get around the job descriptions required by the company? I always say, why is it required? Number one, it's not objective. I have Littler Mendelsohn looking at performance profiles, which is #1 labor attorney, and says, no, a performance profiles is more objective than a job description. So let's be real frank. A job description appears to be objective, but if you've ever promoted someone into the job who doesn't have those skills, it's not accurate. Now, with a federal contractor who's got to do OCCP, what I basically say, you still don't have to advertise on the job description. You can still make your advertising talk about why it's a great job and then screen them on the job description. That's the only group that really has a restriction, because you signed a contract to say, I want this, 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 and that. The other way you could do it is still advertise all your software jobs, and then say, okay, we're looking for software developers between 1 and 10 years experience in this, in Ruby, and this, and that, and this. And then once they get to that, they're just looking at a hub, and then from there say, well, here's 5 jobs. Here's the entry-level job, the mid-level job, and the senior-level job. So you could kind of change it, but the law doesn't say you have to advertise skills at the top of the list. You just have skills in the list. You don't need to put all the skills there, just some of the skills. You can screen on that. From a practical standpoint, what people do with what they have that makes them successful, not what they have. So here's how I write. Let's be real frank. You have a job description, which is useless. You have a performance profile, which is year 1. This is the stuff that people do. And you got the EVP, which is beyond year 1. What's in it for the candidate? So your advertising should say, this is the thing I said earlier. Candidates make decisions based on year 1 and beyond. But we advertise on before year 1 and it only excludes good people. So to have your cake and eat it, do it this way. advertise on the good stuff. This is where they can make the decision, year one and beyond. So start with the EVP at the top of the list. Emphasize what they're going to do. Put the skills at the bottom of the list, even if you have to put them there. Hey, you probably have 5 to 7 years of this, and this. But if you don't, and you can do this work, we'd like to talk to you anyway. So at least leave it open-ended, so you get both. This way you'll get people, that's pretty cool. That sounds pretty cool. Well, I got a little lighter than that, but I'd like to talk to the company. That's why I said you got to change your processes to meet the needs of top people. And everybody comes back and says, oh, our processes, we need to have the job description. This is where I talk about the key process that's out of alignment. You talk to a good lawyer, they say, no, you don't need that. You believe you need it because you haven't thought of an alternate way of doing it. But just because a job description is objective, it's got 7 years on it, doesn't mean it's accurate. If someone can do it for 3 years, why shouldn't they get the job? Yes, Kimberly, that's the other point that I said. I'm writing another book right now called The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, which I am talking to the senior partner at Littler Mendelson, and we've discussed this, and he's going to put his advisory in it, which is pretty similar to what I just defined here. You do have to validate that the criteria, the performance profile is accurate, and when the person actually becomes the candidate, you do have to do reporting, but all you need is objective criteria and a structured means to measure that objective criteria. So they're not, you still got stuff to do, but don't believe that your job description is the gospel. Unless it's scientifically derived, you're still at risk. And think about it. When you focus on the work the person can do, all of a sudden it has to be comparable work. So now it opens up to all diverse candidates. Diverse candidates see the job as a career move. They have a different mix of skills. You also open it up to all the military vets who have different leadership skills, different discipline. So you kind of change the dynamics of, it's not 7 years in the industry. Hey, you've led a logistics project to bring in, 15 shiploads a week coming into Iran. Well, that's a pretty cool, that's a pretty big task that somehow gets lost here in the job description. So when you start focusing on skills, it's a shortcut to disaster, in my opinion. Lead with the future, emphasize year one, put the skills in the past. You do those things, guys, and you just change everything. You actually, the funnel starts becoming the right funnel. I want to kind of get here because I could go on for a long period of time here, but it's a little too long. Nope, I'm going to skip that one too. This has actually turned out to be a 2-hour program. Let me just end it with this. But basically, here's my belief. While we go through a series of tactics, methodologies, and all this other stuff, and it's, it's a different way of thinking. Then I think we did get some and it's important discussion with respect to that performance profile. And I do, because I advocate this, obviously I have to talk to lawyers. I've been talking to lawyers for 20 years on this. I actually even went to UCLA and paid a lot of money to get a PhD studying, is this valid? It turned out I didn't need to do it any more than that. They were shocked that I actually did it. I was a little recruiter in Southern California, and I'm getting these concepts validated, and I talk to lawyers to make sure they work. But the real thing that we talk about is becoming a partner. And if you're not a partner with your client, and this is how you get 100% better. You have little influence when you're not a partner. All your candidates aren't seen. You don't have a lot of knowledge about the job itself. You're not very good at assessing candidates, and you waste everybody's time. It's a numbers game. That's what I call being a vendor. If you're a partner with your manager, you can be 200% productive. That's to get you 100%, two times is 100% better. But you have to know the job, the real job. You have to conduct an accurate assessment. 100% of your candidates are seen. You can close the deal within your budget, and you can influence not only the hiring team, but the candidates' advisors as well. The candidates, family, friends, coworkers, spouse. Now, that's a little bit trickier, but I'm not going to get into that. We do that in our training. How do you convince people who you don't know? But if you get real good at this, and there's some people who get certified who then want to become coaches and train their companies, and we have a program for that, they're actually 3 times better. Our program is really about having you become a partner and a career advisor. Yeah, there's a lot of tools and tactics and stuff behind it. You got to do it, and you got to be good at it. And you got to be able to convince your lawyers to do this, and you got to talk to these people, and you got to cajole your managers into thinking out of the box. But you do have to think inside out, upside down, and backwards. And that's what our program is really about. It's an integrated, scalable process. 3 programs: Recruiter Bootcamp, Performance-Based Hiring for Managers, and our LinkedIn Masterclass. We give a tool to give you 24/7 access to it for a year, and you go to any training. If you get certified, you can go to all the courses. If you don't get certified, you can still go to boot camp as many times as you want until you get certified. Love to see you at our September boot camp. It starts the first Friday of September. If you go to that one, you can also go to the one in New York and Toronto in the end of September. You can go to D.C. in October. You can see me in Amsterdam in November and be in San Jose first week in December. We'll start over the tour again in Southern California. We go to Chicago and other places around the country. So hopefully that was helpful. Does that say, Christy, you say tired, or do you mean tried? No, we'll say too. Well, hey, Christy, I'm already tired, but I try to keep up a good face here anyway. But thank you for that. So feel free, guys, to ask any questions. I'll hang on here as long as you guys want. But I think this is important. But I really, if I had to just say, my own personal belief is when I shoot that little funnel, recruiters have to hold the deal together without the rules and regulations. They got to hold it together, and managers want to do something different, and the candidate does something different, the candidate's spouse does something different. You got to figure out how to pull it all together. Somebody else is an alternative to the ATS. I think I'm going to give you my crude alternative, but I see in the future. I don't really, nobody's told me this, but we use a product called Infusionsoft, which is a CRM, which sometimes when we send something out to you, you'll see Infusionsoft. Sometimes you'll automatically get an email back that thinks it's from me or somebody who works for our company. But it's called an interactive CRM system. You start building that, and it's better than Avature. It puts Avature in the sandbox. It's child's play. But it's still better than nothing. But Avature's better than nothing. I'm sorry, Barry, I know the folks there, but I just don't think it's too robust. I also think LinkedIn's Talent Pipeline, free tool, but you can see how LinkedIn is starting to take over this space. Different process, not the same as an ATS, and oh yeah, we're not competing with the ATS. Yeah, right. LinkedIn's going to own the world, guys. So just recognize it. Facebook could have done it. They don't want. LinkedIn is totally focused to talent management. I think they haven't told anything because they don't blabbermouth. They don't tell me anything they're doing, and rightly so. My sense is you don't have to read the tea leaves too hard. If you get an interactive CRM with LinkedIn's Talent Pipeline, it will become a pretty cool tool. So that's my thoughts. Oh yeah, Jennifer. Okay, guys, thanks very much. No other questions. I'm out of here. Go on to the next one. But hopefully, I see you in September somewhere. See you in September. That sounds like it could be a good song by the Monkees, right? See you in September, guys.
Great. Thank you, Lou. And if you did ask a question that we didn't have time to answer today, go ahead and send that into info@adlerconcept.com.